After the embarrassing defeat at the Battle of Saratoga and the entrance of France and Spain into the war, the British were looking for new ways to defeat the Americans quickly. Over in England, Parliament was becoming increasingly frustrated at the lack of success and the costs that were starting to mount in order to fund the war. People in England were becoming increasingly frustrated also at the lack of success and also the heavy taxes that were levied on them in order to fund the war. The new strategy the British would come up with would be called the Southern Campaign, and this was the genius idea of General Sir Henry Clinton. Clinton would raise a new army and would sail from New York into the southern colonies, and he would establish a British foothold in Georgia and South Carolina, and then would send out small units into the back countries of North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia in order to recruit people that were loyal to the crown. The British assumed that most people in the southern colonies were loyalists, which meant that they were loyal to the British, and that once the British had established dominance in the southern colonies, they would flock to the British lines. Charleston would not be an easy city to take, though, and the British faced fierce resistance from American and South Carolina state troops upon entering the outskirts of the city. A siege was declared. Now, inside the city, things were not looking good for the Americans. Frequent arguments between South Carolina state government officials and the state governor, with General Benjamin Lincoln and other Continental officers, led to a split. The government was not happy with the toll that was being taken on the civilians of the city. Many of them had been wounded and killed by British bombardments, and Lincoln, they saw, was being obstinate and was not willing to meet the British in a fair battle. This led to eventually the South Carolina state troops being pulled out of the city and the state government evacuating the city, leaving the Americans all alone and defenseless. One of the major problems the British faced when besieging Charleston, South Carolina, were all the roads that led in and out of the city. In order to take Charleston, they would have to secure all of these roads so that the American army could not escape. General Sir Henry Clinton would not accept any terms of surrender unless it included the complete and utter surrender of all American forces in the Carolinas. And therefore, he would not negotiate with Lincoln, and Lincoln, in return, would not negotiate with the British. One by one, Clinton started sending out small detachments, mainly of light cavalry and infantry, to take these roads, and they would meet some resistance, but they would mostly take these roads with ease. The final nail in the American coffin would be at the Battle of Monk's Corner, when American sentries were surprised late one night by British troops led by Lieutenant Colonel Bannister Tarleton and would be routed into the South Carolina wilderness. With all the roads being taken by British, the Americans were forced to surrender a short time later. It was the largest American defeat and surrender of the American Revolutionary War, and the British now had a firm foothold in the southern colonies to begin their campaign.